Okay, so we are resuming our football club history series. I'm looking at Sutton United in this video because the majority of their existence they have been in the non-league. They have a great history in the FA Cup with some giant killings in their history as a non-league club. They've reached the 5th round as a non-league club. They have not been as far as a Football League club. They've only spent 2 seasons in the Football League. They're currently, as of recording, 13th in League Two. As of recording, which is the 30th of April 2023. Their first season in the Football League, they finished 8th in League Two, which is their highest ever finishing position in the Football League non-league structure as a club. But they go way back to 1898, so it took a very, very long time from foundation to reach the Football League. Now, they play at Gander Green Lane, which has a capacity of just over 5,013 in total, of which 765 is seated. So that truly is a non-league ground in the Football League, very similar to Forest Green Rovers, who they will be playing next season in the league, because Forest Green Rovers have been relegated from League One. That has been confirmed quite some weeks ago, so that will be a league fixture next year. Now, the foundation goes back to 1898. It's a merger of 2 clubs in the Sutton area of what is now South West London, which was Surrey at the time. Sutton Guild Rovers Football Club and Sutton Association Football Club decided to merge in 1898. They started out as a junior club. They did not have a senior side until 1910, which is when they entered the non-league structure in the Clapham League in 1910. 11 years later, so just after World War I, they joined the Athenian League in 1921. By 1963, as an Athenian League side, they reached the Amateur Cup final against Wimbledon. They lost 4-2 in 1963. So the famous Wimbledon Football Club, who went on to win the 1988 FA Cup final as a Division 1 side, who ultimately would be renamed MK Dons and relocated to Milton Keynes, which led to the birth of AFC Wimbledon. Yeah, they lost to them in 1963, but the following season in 1964, they are allowed to join the Isthmian League. They apply and are accepted. So they've gone up a level in the non-league. In 1970, so only 6 years after joining the Isthmian League, they reached the FA Cup 3rd round for the first time. They lose to the Don Revie-led Leeds United 6-0. So, hey, they as a non-league side, they're starting to reach the mid-stages of the FA Cup. When the big boys join, that's their first major cup run, ends 6-0 defeat to Leeds United in 1970. In 1979, they win the Anglo-Italian Cup as a semi-professional side against Chieti, 2-1. They will be runners-up in that historical competition in 1980 and 1982, so they win something. It's not a Wembley, that's why they win that trophy. In 1981, still in the Isthmian League, they play the FA Trophy final versus Bishop's Stortford. They lose that final at Wembley. But by 1986, they have now entered the old conference, which is now the National League in 1986. And it is as a conference side that they beat Coventry City 2-1 in the FA Cup 3rd round in 1989. Now, Coventry City had recently been champions in the FA Cup not long before. They lost famously 2-1 in the 3rd round to Sutton United at Gander Green Lane as well. But by 1991, those cup runs can't keep them in the conference. They're relegated back to the Isthmian League. They'll have several spells in the Isthmian League and several spells in what is now the National League and National League South, formerly Conference South, before reaching the Football League in 2021. 2004, at the top end of the Isthmian League, there's a restructuring of the non-league structure below what is now the National League, and they are a founder member of the Conference South, which would become National League South in due course with changing of structure further on. They are a founder member in 2004, but by 2009 they're relegated back to the Isthmian League for the 3rd time. They have 3 spells in the Isthmian League. 2011, they get promoted back to what is now the National League South after renaming. And in 2016, they reached the National League, so what was the conference, for the 2nd time in their history. Now, their first season back in the National League in the 2016-2017 season, they go on another cup run. They beat Leeds United in the FA Cup 4th round 1-0. They go on to play Arsenal in the FA Cup 5th round for the first and only time they've made it to the 5th round of the FA Cup. They lose 2-0, but that's famous for Piegate because their reserve goalkeeper had a bet on, and there was a lot of suspicious betting patterns surrounding him eating a pie on the bench in the second half of that game. he would do that. The odds were 8-1, I believe, with certain bookmakers. The club were found to have, the player in question breached betting rules, forced to quit the club in response, and therefore the club did not have a reserve goalkeeper for their next National League game, where they had to play a defender in goal. And so there was a bit of Piegate, very famously, but they reached the FA Cup fifth round for the only time in their history as a non-league side, not as a Football League side. 2021, they finally get promotion from the non-league to the Football League, and they are promoted to the Football League in 2021. 2022, Football League trophy final versus Rotherham United. They lose 4-2 in extra time. So again, trip to Wembley, they don't win. Basically, they have a horrific record in cup finals and trophy finals, FA Vase trophy and finals at Wembley. It doesn't go well. But in that first season in League Two, they finish 8th, which is their highest ever finishing position in a season. They are currently 13th in League Two as of date of recording, which is the 30th of April 2023. Now, they could finish higher than that. They could finish lower than that. There are still a few games, I think 3 games left to play in League Two as of date of recording. So the season's winding down. They might, at a push, make the playoff places, I believe. They're not going to get relegated. They're a mid-table side this season. And they've now started to establish themselves as a Football League side in League Two. Where they finish next season, who knows? But their first season was pretty good. They narrowly missed out on the playoff places in their first season in the Football League. So, very similar story to Forest Green Rovers in a sense. Very, very similar story to Forest Green Rovers. Most of their history has been in the non-league. They've only spent 2 seasons in the Football League, and they will be playing Forest Green Rovers next season, home and away, because Forest Green Rovers have been relegated from League One after only 1 season at that level. So, that is a brief history of Sutton United. Some great FA Cup runs. Obviously, the famous wins over Leeds and Coventry City, and also the famous defeats against Arsenal and Leeds as well in the FA Cup. They've been to the 5th round once, and that was as a non-league side. I think one of only 5 non-league sides to reach the 5th round in the history of the competition since the Football League has been around. And there we go. There's a brief history of Sutton United, obviously famously winning the Anglo-Italian Cup as well back in 1979. But their finest moment, obviously, is the 1989 Cup shock as a non-league side against Coventry City, which they won 2-1. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. That's a brief history of Sutton United. We will do more club histories of the lower league clubs in England, some of the non-league clubs in England, and of course some of the big clubs in Europe as well. We shall do some club histories of them, and of course Scottish football. There's still some more clubs for me to do up there. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comment section below. If you are a Sutton United fan, I would love to hear from you. And from me, it's goodbye for now, and I'll have some more content for you very, very soon.